Good morning, ID, and welcome to part 3. In this part, let's go ahead and just start, and we are going to be designing this wheel over here. Now, remember what I said before, when they give you a cross-section, they want you to make it using the cross-section. So over here they give us a cross-section of the wheel, and to start it, what I would do is I would draw a rough cross-section of that. So since I've already looked at it, I'm going to draw it out roughly. So it looks something like that if it was all flat. Then we have this rounded bottom, which has a radius of 0.125. There's a center line to it, if you can tell. So that means that at one point it was a circle. So what I'm going to do with that is draw a circle up here that would hopefully match it. And if it's 0.125, then this would be a circle of 0.25, like so. There's just one of you'll need. What else? If you look over here, you'll notice that there's some open space, and when you revolve it, it creates like an opening. So there has to be a line that's in the middle of nowhere that you revolve this part on. So if I hopped over here, I would, let's say, draw a line, I don't know, over here maybe. And looking at the bottom photo, I can tell that this has a diameter of 0.28, this opening down here, so that if I was going to dimension it to the bottom of the part, I would probably dimension this 0.14 because that's half of 0.28, so that eventually when I'm done this sketch and I've dimensioned everything for my axes in the revolve tool, if I clicked on that, it would revolve and it would generate the wheel. So that's kind of how you want to approach it. Now, of course, you got to put the remaining dimensions on there. So go ahead, this is like the general profile of it. Go ahead and dimension the rest of the dimensions over here so that you have a correct wheel cross section. Yeah. Okay, and once you've done that, let me head over here. You're going to revolve this wheel part on this axis, and you're going to create the wheel. Next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create those cuts in the bottom. And it might be a little hard to see, but the bottom part, let me get a pencil. It has these radius numbers like 0.625 and 0.375, and we have that center line in the center. And what this radius means is that this was once like a circle, and I'm going to let me thicken the lines. Once a circle, and then it is no longer a circle, but it was once a circle, as well as this one over here. So that had a radius of 0.375, and the other one had a radius of 0.625. And then what they did to create these little sections over here was they drew lines going from the center of the wheel outward. And when they did so, they created those cuts, because all that remains is what's in between, and those are the cuts. So on the back of your wheel, you want to do the same thing. You want to create a sketch. You want to draw out those two circles. So since it's 0.625 and 0.375, you need to make sure you have you double those numbers, because Inventor works in diameters when dealing with circles. And then you want to draw out your lines. So I could draw out a line over here, a line over here, and then whatever's in between is my cross section, and I can extrude or cut that out. So sometimes it won't extrude. If you use the split tool located over here, you can split the intersections between the lines if it's not extruding for you. And then when you finish your sketch, I can just simply extrude that part out. I can cut it through, like so. And then instead of drawing it out 6 more times, I can use this tool over here, this circular pattern. I can select that cut I just made. And then for rotation axes, I can select any circle. And since this is entire just like a bunch of circles, I can, let's say, click over there. It will create an automatic 6, but I can change that number if I needed to, but I don't need to, so I'll hit OK. And I could essentially create all the cuts in my wheel. Now that's a little bit sloppy, as you can tell. It's cutting through, but this is just for demo purposes. Okay, lastly, we need to put this little linkage arm peg locker thing in here. It's essentially 3 circles. That is roughly 0.7 away from the center of the circle. So if I was going to make this, I would probably create a 2D sketch on this surface, and I would draw out 3 circles. And I can then go back to the sheet, and over here they tell me the diameters of the 3 circles, so I can dimension those. And once I've dimensioned those, I can essentially extrude them out so that they match this photo over here. So, like so. To dimension it from the center, it might be useful to draw a circle in the center, like so. I don't know why my circle's going a little crooked. Okay, that's not working. I'll use project geometry then to light up the center. There we go. And then I'm going to dimension from the center of the circle to the center of these 3. And if I went straight up, I get this dimension, but that might not be the correct dimension because these might not be on like the same level. So in order to fix that, if you right-click and then go to the option called Aligned, you're going to get an aligned reading because it's going to kind of twist the dimension a little so that you're getting a more parallel or collinear view of it. I'm going to click over there. I'm going to set that to, let's say, 0.7, which it said on the sheet. And although mine is really, really close to this, yours should be a little more far out, even though it's both 0.7, because my wheel is not dimensioned correctly. Yeah. So you're going to finish sketch, and then you can go ahead and start extruding these rings at different levels to create the final effect. Okay, so that's the wheel. The next part that we want to do is the cowcatcher. And the cowcatcher looks a little intimidating, but it's really not that bad. I'm going to go ahead and get that started for us. The general premise of the cowcatcher, we want to create the top of this cowcatcher and the bottom of this cowcatcher. And they give us all the dimensions to create the top and the bottom. And then we want to loft them together. So if I was making this, let me go ahead and start a sketch on the bottom. Let me draw the bottom very roughly first. The bottom's going to look something like that. Of course, you're going to dimension it so like from the back to the top is 1 inch. So I can do that one for us. From the top to the bottom is 1 inch. Things like that. I'm going to finish that sketch. And then I'm going to create another, whoops. Let me turn on the plane that this is on actually first. So I got the plane on. Create another sketch up here. So I clicked on that plane and I'm dragging it up while holding down the button. And this one's going to be 0.75 from that one. And if I do it that way, that's essentially the extrusion in between these two. And then I'm going to go back here. The one on the top slightly smaller. I'm going to draw it in. And now here's one of those instances where you can use one of these constraints, geometric constraints I was talking about earlier. These two have to be at the same level. So we can use the collinear constraint to essentially click on both and put them on the same level. Only problem is we can't select this line, so I'm going to use project geometry to activate that line, and then I'm going to use the collinear constraint to essentially connect both lines together. Once I've done that, I'm going to dimension the top, so looking up here, let's do one of them. I know that from that point to that point is 0.25, so I could hop over here, dimension this edge to be 0.25, and that's one of the several dimensions you'll need. Finish the sketch. Underneath Sweep tool, there's the Loft tool. I'm going to click on that, and then I'm essentially just going to loft that end with that end, and boom, instant cowcatcher. Click OK. On the front of the cowcatcher, we kind of have like these windows over here, and we want to create those. Only problem is when we loft something, and if we wanted to start a sketch on it, you'll notice that you cannot select the top or the front of the cowcatcher. That's one of the properties of loft. It essentially disables you from selecting those surfaces, which is a problem if we want to draw on those surfaces. So what we have to do is underneath the plane tool, we have an option called a 3 points plane. And I'm going to select that. And how 3 points plane works is that we have to click on 3 points, 1, 2, and that one looks pretty good, 3, and it will create a plane for us on that surface so we can essentially draw on that surface if we start a sketch on that plane. Now before you do that, the bottom of the cowcatcher is hollow, if you noticed. And it has a 0.1 thickness according to this image, which is showing you the thickness of the wall. So let's just go ahead, and before we do that, we're going to shell out the bottom of the part with a 0.1 inch and hit OK. So shell tool is located right over there. Click on it, click on the bottom, and you can shell it. Okay, so then go ahead, you want to draw out essentially 0.1 from the edges of the wall, and you want to extrude that in or cut that in so that it's 0.05 according to this image. Okay, and then at the end you want to put the pegs at the bottom back, so you can still create sketches on the back. And once you create a, whoops, clicked on the wrong surface, but once you create a sketch on the back, you can just draw in those pegs and dimension them accordingly to meet the project's expectations. Okay, so that's the cowcatcher. That's going to conclude this video. I'm going to see you for part 4, where we're going to put it together and do the orthographics. Till then, peace.